Adam says effectiveness of ADT in high yield majors. Mirtha says success after transferring to 4 years to transfer graduate. Lynn says declining numbers of transfer students and how we shift our mission to meet community needs. Keep those answers coming. I'm going to move on to the next portion of our session, which is our agenda. We have a packed agenda today. I'll share the latest updates from Cradle to Career. We'll then provide a recap of our transfer dashboard user engagement, and then we'll share the research questions guiding the dashboards. And then we'll go into a brainstorming session with you all before heading into Q&A and then closing out. Cradle to Career has been busy. C2C was recently in San Bernardino for our first ever data walk. We brought data directly to the community as we joined the Blue Education Foundation's fifth annual Black Education Congress event. We're grateful to have been welcomed in the space where we listened and learned about how we can better build tools that truly support communities across California.
Hey,
And
Anjali, I
yeah,
just want to remind you, I think are we recording? Oh,
it
perfect.
looks
We
like
are.
we are. Yeah,
Sorry about that.
no problem. And you may have seen C2C recently rolled out its new and improved student pathways dashboard. This was truly built by and for Californians. We first launched the Student Pathways dashboard in April of 2025. And after 1 year, users voiced the need for improved responsiveness, accessibility, and mobile access. We heard your feedback and we acted on them. So the new and improved dashboard includes a new year of data following the 2013-14 high school graduating cohort, 9 years down the line. Users can now experience faster load time and enhanced performance. And we went above and beyond accessibility standards. So individuals utilizing screen readers can get a high level overview of the data visualizations as well as access granular data extractions. And last but certainly not least, the Student Pathways dashboard is now fully mobile accessible. So from a laptop to a phone to a tablet, you can access C2C's data anywhere at any time with any device. In case you missed it, we conducted a national scan of existing learning and employment record implementations across the country. Basically, we wanted to know how other states implemented their own versions of a career passport. And so we summarized our findings through a report informing the California Career Passport. If you go check it out if you haven't seen it yet, it includes key considerations and guiding questions for implementers. And I'll drop that link in the chat. And what's ahead? So Cradle to Career will be in San Diego in September for the Education Trust West's Ed Equity Forum. If you plan to go, we hope to see you there. We're hosting a data-thon session. We're doing all things data. We're adding a little competition, and we can expect a lot of learning. So we hope to see you all there. With that, I'll pass it on to Judy Chan, our Deputy Director of Data Programs, and Dr. Elizabeth Parati, our Research Data Specialist, to share more about our transfer dashboard. Over to y'all.
Thank you, Angelique. My name is Judy Chan, and I'm the Deputy Director of Data Programs at C2C. Our team is actively designing two upcoming dashboards, one focused on teacher training and the other on transfer outcomes. Today's focus is on the transfer outcomes dashboard, so we'll be providing some updates on how that is coming along. Later today, we have an activity for you. We're excited to receive your input and use it to inform how we can design this dashboard to meet the needs of users who need trusted information about transfer the most. And with that, I'll pass it to my colleague, Dr. Elizabeth Parati, who will provide you with an update on the design of the dashboards.
Thanks, Judy. Thanks, Angelique. My name is Elizabeth Parati. I'm a research data specialist on the C2C data programs team. I've been leading the design work for our upcoming transfer outcomes dashboard. I'm really excited to share some updates today and get into some brainstorming about how we can make this dashboard useful to even more audiences. And so first, I just want to start off with why C2C is working on a transfer dashboard. Um, just to kind of provide a little bit of background here. So in the last 20 years or so, there have been a lot of statewide initiatives in California to support transfer pathways from community colleges to four-year institutions. Even still, transfer and four-year degree completion rates are low. And data exists about transfer students, but it's currently siloed across a lot of different sources. So, like students, researchers, practitioners, policymakers, they all struggle to see the complete picture of transfer outcomes, given that students, as the nature of transfer, are moving between different systems, in and out of the workforce. And ultimately, this makes it challenging for individuals, organizations, and for the state to make decisions about, how to improve transfer outcomes. And so, to meet those goals of improving four-year degree completion rates, expediting time to degree and time to transfer for students, the state needs access to linked data that shows transfer outcomes and identifies opportunity gaps. Um, so C2C can play a role in solving this problem for the state by creating a public-facing, data-driven suite of resources, including a dashboard that can help different groups of users understand that complex transfer landscape with the goal of enabling users to make data-informed decisions. Next slide. So, as some of you may know, if you've been to our community conversations before or have been to our governing board meetings, those things, user-centered design is a really important part of how C2C builds its public-facing data products. Because the more that we understand our users, the better we can address their needs and their use cases. So we set out at the start of this dashboard design process to gather as much input as we could from the target users of this dashboard. This includes individuals, policymakers, researchers, journalists, educators, more. These are diverse groups of users with very different use cases and expectations of what this dashboard could do for them. And so before we started building this dashboard, I personally really wanted to be sure that, I had a clear vision of the problems that this dashboard could solve and that the rest of my team was aligned on that as well. So I'm going to provide a recap of our user and stakeholder engagement through this design process. Who have we talked to so far and what have we learned? And so this bulleted list here on this slide gives you kind of a quick summary of the many conversations that we've had or that our partners have organized on our behalf. So first, in close collaboration with the amazing partners at the UC Berkeley Possibility Lab, we organize focus groups with former, current, and prospective transfer students, as well as like educators and families that support these students. Second, thanks to coordination from the wonderful team at the Student Ready Strategies. I know some of them were registered today, and I hope that they're here. I am grateful to them because I've been able to tap the expertise of the California Community College, California State University Transfer Collaborative Working Group. This group includes a lot of decision makers, staff, and faculty who are actively working to improve transfer outcomes at their campuses. And then finally, our team has had a lot of conversations with different stakeholders, including our data providers, transfer subject matter experts, and policymakers. Next slide. Okay, so that last slide is kind of like who have we talked to, but I want to get into the meat of it. So what have we actually learned? And so some of these takeaways might feel a little bit obvious to those of you who are like steeped in transfer all day, every day. But I'm going to walk through each of these findings and explain how this has impacted design decisions that our team has made or is making. So the first takeaway is that transfer pathways are not always linear. A student that begins at a community college right after high school, then transfers straight to a UC or a CSU, an AICCU or another institution, and then receives a four-year degree and gets a job. That is one transfer story. But there are a lot of other transfer stories, and ultimately, many students move between education segments in the workforce non-linearly over a long period of time. And so this led us to decide that the dashboard, either through its narrative or through companion materials, resources, etc., we need to establish upfront that nonlinearity is the norm and not an exception for transfer pathways. For students, specifically as like a user group, this might mean feeling like their experience is validated. For researchers or for policymakers, I think that this acknowledges upfront that the data in our dashboard is only telling maybe part of the story, part of like a larger, more complex story. Um, Second lesson kind of learned so far is that there's no single commonly accepted definition of a transfer intending student. The definition of a transfer intending student has evolved over the years, um, ranging from a very narrow definition to a much more inclusive definition. Many community college students may not say that they want to transfer, but their course taking behaviors can actually be more telling of their transfer intent or vice versa. General consensus here that has really been informing the way that I've been doing my analyses and thinking about these questions is that I want to align our dashboard definitions with the California Community College Chancellor's Office definitions of transfer intending students. But along with that, knowing that there's more nuance here, thinking about how we can include more nuanced definition options, maybe within some of the resources or companion materials that go along with the dashboard. Okay, third lesson here is that it became apparent pretty quickly that transfer stories are highly dependent on institution level factors. Many conversations about student success are no longer framed in a student deficit mindset. In other words, you're not getting the full story of why some students transfer and others do not, unless you consider the broader context for that student. Like, how far away is their community college from an open access four-year institution? Similarly, we want to highlight the student behaviors and other choices that students make that may influence their transfer success, rather than focusing only on inherent student characteristics. For example, a student can't change whether or not they are a first generation college student, but maybe they can make a decision about whether or not they decide to pursue an associate degree for transfer pathway. So this finding is directly informing the type of disaggregations and crosscuts of the data that we're going to make available on the dashboard. Presenting these different options will hopefully just allow our users to see transfer outcomes more comprehensively. Okay, fourth, and there's five here, so I'm almost done. We learned a lot. So fourth, a key takeaway from many conversations is that time is money and money talks. Both individuals and organizations often see higher education as a means to get a good paying job. Opportunity costs to attend college are high for some students. So the transfer story is not complete without a piece about return on investment. And it's helpful to understand how long students they take to transfer from the 2-year to a 4-year college, how long it takes for them to finish their 4-year degree, and what the wage opportunities are given the different exit points along the higher education pathway. And so this takeaway is directly informing what metrics and outcomes we will include on the dashboard. More specifically, the dashboard is going to identify time to transfer and time to degree, as well as labor market outcomes at different exit points along the transfer pathway. And so combined, we hope that these metrics can inform organizational and individual decision making about the return on investment of different higher education paths. Okay, and finally, this may or may not be surprising to folks, but we realize that most transfer students are not frequent data-driven dashboard users. This one is a bit funny for me because as someone who is a huge data nerd, I forget that not everyone else gets as excited about dashboards or has easy access to a giant monitor where I can pull up really complex data visualizations. the point here is that many students don't have the experience or the confidence or even the interest in studying the fine details of a dashboard. Students want to digest information in a quick, engaging, and relatable way. And ideally, they want to do it on their phone versus a computer. And so this has really inspired my team, as well as Angelique's team, the engagement team, to put our heads together and think about how to build a dashboard for users who don't normally use dashboards, or better yet, how to create interactive, engaging resources that can still present students and families with the same actionable insights, but in a way that lets the data meet them where they are. And that is going to be really relevant for our discussion in just a bit, so hold on to that thought. We are going to start brainstorming pretty soon, but before we do that, I want to quickly just cover the key questions that the transfer dashboard is going to answer. The exact framing of these questions is still coming together, but at a high level, we know the dashboard is going to cover these topics. So first, how many students are transferring? In other words, what are transfer rates based on institutions, student populations, different majors? How many students want to transfer, actually transfer, and then how many end up getting their four-year degree? And some steps kind of along the way there as well. Second, how long does transfer take? So, in terms of time enrolled at both a two-year institution and a four-year institution, how many credits did students earn both at their pre-transfer institution and then afterwards? Third, where are there existing transfer pathways or pipelines between two and four-year institutions? This answers a question about where students are transferring to and from. And then finally, along the transfer pathway at different exit points, what are the short-term and longer-term wage outcomes for students? And importantly, this one will be disaggregated by students' major or their field of study when they finish college. And so roughly, we expect to have different visualizations or tabs of a dashboard or something that will align with each of these kind of sets of questions. A lot more to come on this in the near future, so stay tuned. There's just a little preview. Okay, and with that, I want to turn our attention to thinking about the ways we can design C2C's upcoming transfer dashboard to make more audiences feel welcome and comfortable drawing insights from the data. Earlier, I mentioned that not all students will feel comfortable using a dashboard. The same could be true for their parents, for the educators who work with these students. These users may be looking for something that feels like it was designed for them, maybe something that helps them see how the numbers relate to their own experiences or to their students' experiences. And so, because of this, lately we have been trying to solve this broader design challenge of understanding how C2C and our community, you all here today, how can we enable students, families, educators, counselors, community organizations? How can we enable folks to discover, use, and share the dashboard with others? So, for today's brainstorm, we're going to be reflecting on and sharing experiences that inform two key parts of this overarching design problem. So outreach first. How can we reach more students, more families, educators, and other users so that they know the dashboard exists and that it was built for them? And then second, data literacy. What are other materials or resources C2C and this community can provide to help users build up the data literacy skills that they need to confidently use the dashboard? Okay, so next slide. Let's start with outreach, thinking about how we can meet users where they are. On the slide, I have a picture that I took when I was jogging through Sacramento City College the other morning. Actually, this was like about a month ago now that I've like taken this picture, but it's a sign that was posted on campus for Foster Youth Awareness Month, and it says only 21% of foster care youth achieve a bachelor's degree or higher. And when I saw the sign, I stopped and I took a picture because this is like exactly the kind of insight that we want people to be able to pull from our dashboards or other tools. And this fact is easy to understand. It inspires curiosity, maybe even inspires action on like the reader's part. But placement, like hundreds of students probably see this sign every day, and they are now more aware of this simple but powerful fact about foster youth. And this made me wonder if there are opportunities like this that C2C could use to really bring our data to the people. So I invite you all to participate in a poll where we're going to ask the question, where would someone naturally encounter like the C2C transfer dashboard if it existed today? We've given you a few options to select, but you can also submit your own ideas. Um, and as a follow-up, I invite you to drop ideas in the chat that answer like, if you were responsible for helping students find this information, what would you do to draw students in? And so I'm going to pause here, give folks a chance to vote in the poll and drop things in the chat. There's a lot in the chat, so I'm going to try to catch up a little bit too. Okay, so I'm seeing some stuff come in the chat. Social media. Oh yeah, advisors. Career center versus yeah, transfer center. That is an important distinction. Emily put that in the chat. Reddit. I get a lot of information from Reddit, so yeah, that. Juvenile halls, continuation, high schools. A low-hanging fruit is working with school district and local education nonprofits. Yes, this has totally crossed our minds. Yeah, through campuses, social media channels, middle schools, and social media. Excuse me. Counseling courses that counselors at the community colleges teach. Oh yeah, student advisory councils. That's a really good idea too. Whenever they are getting transfer application information, like from their college websites, yeah, that definitely, yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me too. Yeah. Okay, tons of great ideas in the chat. Thank you all so much. And I'm excited to look at the results of the poll. Angelique, help me out here. Is everyone seeing the results or is it only the hosts and panelists?
I think I have it shared. If I think everybody is seeing it. Yep, they can see it.
Okay, everyone can see. Great. So we're all looking at this together. This is fantastic. Yeah. So a lot of folks pointing towards college and university websites, counseling and advising offices. Those were definitely, I think, two that were really top of mind for us too, um, as just places that we are pretty confident students are frequenting or have relatively easy access to. Community-based orgs, student clubs, high school, college readiness programs. Yeah, I think there's a big opportunity there as well. And then the career centers. And so some of you guys also mentioned like in the chat the difference between like career centers versus the transfer centers. And I think they both would totally serve as places where this could be something, a place where a student might organically, bump into a C2C dashboard on transfer outcomes. This is great. Okay, perfect. I'll give it one more moment to see if anybody else drops anything else in the chat. PTAs. Yeah. University bulletin boards for staff and service areas. Nice. Okay, great. This is fantastic. Let's move on to the second part. Oh, and then yeah, there was a great question. I just saw it come in about integration into californiacolleges.edu, CCGI. Yeah, I think there is an opportunity there, and they are one of our operational and practical tools partners. So there definitely, I think, could be something there. I would really be interested in exploring that. Okay, let's move on to the next slide for talking about data literacy. I think we should be one more slide forward. Perfect. Okay. Let's think about how we can empower users to feel more confident and comfortable actually drawing insight from the data. So whether that's through the dashboard, maybe a tutorial, a user guide, some other experience, pie in the sky, blue sky, and lots of different options here. So similar to the last slide, we have a poll that you all can vote in to help us answer a question. What companion materials or resources could C2C and this community provide to help users build up the data literacy skills that they need to confidently draw insights from the data? And so I'll give you guys a moment to vote in this poll. And then, like the other slide, I invite you all to drop examples or other ideas in the chat. So, if you know of an example of a resource or maybe an event or something else that promotes data literacy and like really resonated with you, I would love to see those kinds of examples. It doesn't have to be related to transfer or to education, just anything where you felt like complex information was explained really well, maybe like kind of slowly scaffolded in like a helpful, actionable kind of way. Would love to see examples if anything comes to mind. Viviana mentions tools that support hands-on learning and help users connect the dashboard data to real decisions. That one, yes, like big plus one to that. Um, I think that's a really important way that we'll be able to make the numbers feel more relevant to students or to families. Hypothetical student demo, hands-on use with guidance. That kind of reminds me of like the things that I know engagement, our team has been thinking about, like train a trainer, right? Like maybe there's opportunities for us to, help like work directly with practitioners or other folks who work with students to like help them, work through the content kind of with their students. There might be an opportunity there. Okay, Maggie dropped a story feature of the Opportunity Atlas because it distills complex ideas into a narrative. Oh yeah, I will definitely check that out. That's very much. That sounds really interesting. Student ambassadors. Ooh, that's a good idea. I feel like students listen to each other. Like, like if a student says, "Hey, look at this dashboard I used," another student would be more interested in listening to a student who recommends it. So student ambassador is a good idea. Oh, okay. So counselor conferences, doing data walks, with counselors or other higher ed professionals. Nice. Oh, someone dropped in New York Times. Oh, what's going on in this graph? I think I've seen that before. Yeah, that's great. A C2C onboarding platform that is connected to opening steps. Um, I'm like maybe like, having to like open a bank account. That's interesting. That's a cool idea. Okay, I'll give it one more moment to see if anybody else has any other ideas. Okay. And did we see the results of the poll? I don't know where it went. Here it is. Okay. So, all right, great. Um, a lot of folks are upvoting the like online user guides, tutorials, embedding qualitative data. Yeah, I that kind of related to the point made about like students listening to other students and like student ambassadors. I think, having some student voice next to numbers, I hope like could make it feel more real, more tangible for students or other folks who might kind of just be getting their feet wet with looking at data or using data to help them make a decision. And then a little bit less, but still some interest in the campus data walks. Yeah. Um, that might that might be something that, yeah, we could work with like our different partners or different folks here in our community to think about that. Okay. Okay. So I think after this, I think we transition into the Q&A portion, and I do want to make sure I leave plenty of time for the Q&A because I'm sure that folks have a lot of questions, and I'm happy to answer them. Angelique and Judy and I can all answer them. Um, so let me turn it over to Angelique, who I think is gonna feed in questions.
Yeah, thanks, Elizabeth. Yep, just a reminder, folks, if you have specific questions, to drop them in the Q&A and we'll filter through that way. We'll give folks a moment or two to drop their questions in the Q&A. And I'll look through the chat just to make sure in case folks drop their questions in there. Viviana asked, what's the definition C2C is using for transfer?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I mentioned earlier, transfer means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. For the first release of this dashboard, we wanted to start with kind of a specific scope just to make sure that we, you know, are focusing kind of on like one part before we introduce all the other ideas. And so we're focusing on the transition from California community colleges, two-year colleges, to four-year institutions. So predominantly UC and CSU, but we're also exploring how to include some private and out-of-state institution transfer as well. So I think I saw something in the chat earlier about lateral transfers or even reverse transfers. Students who start at one four-year college and then transition or transfer to another. Those are like, obviously a lot of transfer stories follow those paths as well, but we wanted to focus on kind of the 2-year to four-year transfer pathway, at least just to start. Yeah.
I have another question in the Q&A, Elizabeth. What are some of the type of students being measured by the dashboard? Re-entry, veteran, first gen, gender, ethnicity, etc.
Yes, I think we have, I don't have the complete list like memorized, but a couple of those that were mentioned, first generation college student, um, in race and ethnicity groups. I think we're also looking at one of the things that we heard kind of consistently was like the different transfer experiences for students who are kind of like go to college shortly after high school versus taking more time off. So, like an age at first enrollment kind of category is something we're also looking into. And then beyond that, some additional things related to like students, like the choices that they make. So, choice of, major, their, whether or not they decided to pursue an associate degree for transfer. Um, I think I'm blanking on some of the others. But those are, we have a couple of K through 12 indicators that we're also interested in. May not be available for all students, just kind of like, but that would only be available for students who, for example, graduated from a California public high school, which is not all community college transfer students. But for students where it's available, we're thinking about including things like, did the student participate in dual enrollment? Did they complete all of their A through G prerequisite coursework when they were in high school? So those are just a few things that we're thinking about.
What kind of filtering or drill down of the transfer data will be available? Geographic regions, county-specific segments, CSU versus UC, or individual campuses?
Yeah, I think it's to the point I made earlier about how institution level factors are really important. We're still analyzing the data to sort of see like where exactly we'll be able to kind of draw some of these, like how finely can we cross-cut the data, right, without bumping into like really small groups of students. So it's definitely kind of a like balancing act. Um, but I think it's going to be pretty important to have institution, like campus level data where possible. Um, so that's kind of the plan. And then I mentioned some of the different sort of student demographic or student characteristic kind of crosscuts as well. And then I think I mentioned this maybe, but major is another one that is a very like it's whatever your major is can have a really big impact on kind of your transfer experience. So we want to include major to some extent as well.
Great. We have a couple more questions in the chat. How will degree completion transfer programs be handled for non-traditional reentry students who might have both academic coursework and be seeking credit for prior learning?
Ooh, that's a really good question that I don't have a super good answer to right off the bat. Um, I would say send that question to C2C's like info, like our email, and let's like follow up because I would like to unpack that question and like kind of get some input from the person who asked this, who probably is thinking about this a lot more than I am, like in this moment right now. So I'm gonna punt that and say like let's unpack it and answer it together. Unless
Yeah.
Judy, do you have any thoughts? And not to put you on the spot. But we haven't really been talking about how to incorporate credit for prior learning so far.
Not for the initial cut. That might be something that we think about for the future, but for the time being, we're focusing on a very specific slice or cohort of students. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's also, it will obviously be highly dependent on what kind of credit for prior learning data we have and that we're getting from our data providers. And so I would have to go back and kind of look and see what data we have right now on that. But I can totally see why that is a really big part of a lot of students' transfer pathways.
That question came from Maureen. Maureen, our email and our contact information will be on the next slide. So if you wouldn't mind just sending that back to us at info@c2c.ca.gov, and we'll make sure to follow up with you. Alexa's asked if a student is enrolled in multiple 2 to 3 community colleges at the same time, would that be considered in the dashboard?
That is definitely something that we have. Right now, I have kind of like a metric, like kind of at like the student level of like how many campuses, like community college campuses was the student enrolled in, and I've broken it out right now by like, okay, where did that student start? But then also where did that student sort of earn the majority of their credits, like before they transferred, or while they were enrolled at community colleges. So I don't quite know how it's going to show up in the dashboard yet, but I'll just say that we're definitely considering like co-enrollments because a lot of students are enrolled at more than one community college.
How will the C2C transfer dashboard be different from the National Student Clearinghouse transfer dashboard?
Oh, I actually haven't seen that dashboard, which feels like a bit of an oversight. C2C has National Student Clearinghouse data, so um, in some senses, like if that data is being used in this dashboard, like there might be a lot of similarities, but I would have to look at it to tell you kind of how they will differ specifically.
Lynn wants to know if we're including data about accelerated college entrance programs.
Um, To my knowledge, that is not something that we have. I'm not sure that we have data on like a accelerated college entrance program, like if a student participates in that. So for now, that will probably not be covered. But that's a good question, and maybe something we can explore with our data providers for the future.
All right, I think we are winding down with our questions. We'll give folks just another moment in case they have last parting thoughts. I think we are wrapping up. Thank you all for joining and engaging with us today. As always, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, you can always email us at info@c2c.ca.gov. If you have questions that come up even after this community conversation, you can make sure to just shoot us those questions. And a real human checks that inbox. I check that inbox. A recording of today's meeting can be found on our website and also our YouTube page in the coming days. And finally, we have a special request for you all. You heard Mark earlier today, who provided live Spanish interpretation for today's session. Thank you, Mark. But we want to make sure that we're providing language access support to all who need it, and we need your help. We're looking to expand our language access services, so please take this quick survey via the QR code to tell us more about the languages that you speak at home or the languages that the communities that you work with speak. We want to make sure that this information is accessible to all Californians, and this survey will help provide a better picture of who is currently engaging with C2C and how we can reach so many more. And with that, thank you for spending your Thursday afternoon with us, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mark.